In the waning days of the 19th century, under the long shadow of the British Raj, a child was born who dreamed of India's dawn. Allahabad, 1889. Jawaharlal Nehru was born into privilege, intellect, and influence, but also into a nation without freedom. Educated at Harrow and Cambridge, trained in science, and sharpened by law, he returned to India not as a revolutionary, but as a young man who was still searching for purpose. Then came 1919, Jallianwala Bagh, hundreds unarmed and hundreds dead, and a nation bleeding in silence. That massacre did not just rupture India's soul, it shattered Nehru's comfort. From that moment, the barrister stepped aside, and the freedom fighter stepped forward. When Mahatma Gandhi called upon India to rise, to boycott, to resist, to suffer if needed, Jawaharlal Nehru answered without hesitation. He abandoned a lucrative legal career, and he embraced prison cells as classrooms. He wore khadi as armor. Over the next 2 decades, Nehru would be jailed again and again, not for violence, but for refusing to kneel. Behind iron bars, he wrote letters to his daughter, books to his people, and ideas to nation yet unborn. He believed freedom was meaningless without understanding, that independence without unity would collapse, and he warned India early. A divided nation can be freed, but will not stay freed. As decades turned, Nehru's voice grew stronger, and his presence ever larger. He spoke to students, workers, peasants, speakers, prisoners. He spoke of science, equality, secularism, and reason. He spoke of an India that belonged to all of its children. In 1929, he stood at the center of the freedom movement and declared complete independence as India's goal. No half measures, no dominion status, just freedom. During the Quit India movement, while leaders were in jail and newspapers were silenced, Nehru wrote the discovery of India, not as a nostalgia, but as a blueprint. He imagined a nation that respected faith, but also was governed by reason. A country modern in thought, but also ancient in wisdom. And slowly, India began to see him not just as a leader, but as a future architect. August 14, 1947. Inside the Congress Party, a storm was moving. Many provincial leaders in the party had suggested Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel as the new leader. But then again, history chose a different path. Patel stepped aside, not in defeat, but in sacrifice. And as we all know, at the stroke of midnight, Jawaharlal Nehru stood in front of the waiting nation.
At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom.
Freedom, however, was only the beginning. Nehru inherited a country that was scared of partition, impoverished, illiterate, and fractured. And yet, he chose optimism. He believed democracy could survive in India, and in fact thrive. He believed that science could defeat hunger, that education could beat superstition. Under his leadership, India adopted a democratic constitution. GDP growth averaged about 3.5% in the early 5-year plans. Heavy industries were built from scratch. Steel plants rose in Bhilai, Rourkela, and Durgapur. Massive dams powered a young nation. He called these projects the temples of modern India. Nehru understood one truth deeply. A poor nation can rise, an uneducated one cannot. Between 1951 and 1964, number of educational institutions more than doubled. Student enrollment rose from 25 million to over 56 million. India founded 5 Indian Institutes of Technology, national laboratories, atomic research facilities, and the universities multiplied. Where once there were detention camps, there were now classrooms. Where silence once ruled, questions now were encouraged. He urged Indians to develop a scientific temper, to question, to reason, to think. Now, Nehru always refused to chain India to a global power. In a Cold War world where everyone was dismantled and divided by fear, he chose independence of thought. He became the founding voice of the non-aligned movement, standing alongside the newly freed nations who refused to be a pawn. His vision was clear. India will not dominate. India would not submit. Now, Jawaharlal Nehru was not without flaws though. He did make mistakes. He trusted too much. He believed too deeply. But he never betrayed his core idea that India must belong to everyone, not to one faith, not to one ideology, not to one language, and certainly not to one religion. When he died in 1964, India did not just lose a ruler, it lost a dreamer. Yet his legacy remains everywhere. In institutions that still stand, in ideas still debated, and in freedoms still defended. He once said,
"The achievement we celebrate today is but a step, an opening of opportunity to the greater triumphs and achievements that await us."
That step became a nation. Jawaharlal Nehru did not just give India perfection, he gave India direction, and perhaps that was the greatest gift of all. Today, Nehru's name remains muddled, ostracized, and slandered. Across our land, his legacy is questioned, distorted, and diminished. When I think of Nehru, I don't think politics. I think of responsibility, that too on a man with a newborn nation on his shoulder. Every decision echoing across generations yet to come. He wasn't flawless though, that I would admit, but he was also deeply human, intellectual, idealistic, and restless, painfully aware of powers of limits. Today, his name becomes slogans and punchlines, reduced to caricature and convenient blame, elitist, anti-national, weak. He was blamed for every modern problem India faced or faces. This is not history, this is convenience. One man is easier to demonize than complexity. Colonial borders become his fault. Cold War conflicts become his burden. Post-colonial struggles rewritten as personal failures. Now, criticism is fair. Erasing context, though, is not. Nehru built institutions when India had none. Science, education, parliamentary democracy, a foreign policy rooted in dignity, not subservience. He built IITs, AIMS, ISRO, a constitutional democracy imagined into existence. Yet, these are rarely acknowledged. Only blame is remembered. Although what troubles me most is his humanism is mocked today. Debates become weakness. Dissent becomes betrayal. Pluralism becomes suspicion. Loud certainty replaces thoughtful leadership. Absolute loyalty replaces moral courage. Yet, Nehru refused to rule with fear. That refusal saved India's fragile democracy. In its earliest, most vulnerable years, Nehru loved India to imagine the best out of it. Imagine something much better. Not perfect, but better. That imagination is what's under attack today. Not just a man, but the values that he believed in. And perhaps that is why his name still matters. If you like this video, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.